Did you know that Tanium now provides experienced threat hunters to help you get the most out of your Tanium investments? Find out about this advanced support option and more on today's Tanium Tech Talk.
Welcome back to Tanium Tech Talks. We are your hosts, Ashley McGlone.
And Jesh Sachs. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, security. Now, we all know cybersecurity is an endless job, never-ending alerts. We have incidents, not to mention getting all the tools to play nice together. Oftentimes, it really just feels like we don't have enough people or expertise to stay on top of it all.
Well, today we're here with Michael to discuss an exciting new initiative and advanced support option that can help relieve some of the pressure on our security teams. We call this HuntIQ. So, Michael, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Jess. My name is Michael Bailey, and I'm the Director for Threat Hunting. So a little bit about myself. I've been here at Tanium for 4.5 years. I came to Tanium as a Director of Technical Account Manager, where I focused primarily on our federal customers. I quickly realized that I enjoyed the security part of our portfolio, and I specialized in that working with our federal customers. So working with a lot of our cybersecurity teams for the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and a lot of our federal agencies. So my background before Tanium is I spent a little bit over 20 years in the Army. I retired as what's called a Chief Warrant Officer 4, which is a senior technical advisor and technical expert in a specific field. Now, I started out in networking, network communications, satellite communications, and obviously network security. But then I switched as a senior warrant officer, so over into cybersecurity, where I did malware analysis, packet analysis at the national level for the Department of Defense. After that, I worked for a small company called Security Onion, and then I got picked up at Tanium, where, yeah, all this background led me to here, right? Here at January to start leading this team and help developing out what HuntIQ is, and specifically how we're going to conduct threat hunting in our customer environments to enable them to have the most out of not only Tanium, but the expertise that we've put together in this team.
Michael, I love that your team, just knowing and working with some of them, they are some incredibly experienced and amazing people. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about the different things that we can offer in addition to this brain trust that is your team. I know you talked about this HuntIQ team, and security-wise, like the moment that I saw Tanium, the first questions I'm asking are, hey, get running services, get the processes that are running right now, and seeing how easy it is to like get real-time data and take action on it, right? But like you, I was in the field for a while working with customers, and I saw customers struggle to just get the most out of that investment because whether it be time or people or just knowledge of how to use the tool, there were just so many roadblocks that people were having to come over the hurdle for. And I feel like I'm really excited for HuntIQ because it solves so many of these things, gets this great data that we have, and brings it to our customers in a way that really can help their security teams. So you and I, we've been talking about this a lot recently. I am so happy to share it with our customers. Tell us more. We've talked about it. HuntIQ, what is that?
That's a great question. So as you know, we had announced HuntIQ and Last Converge. HuntIQ has three parts to it. So the Guardian Advanced Research Team, which is bringing out Guardian dashboards, allowing our C staff to get relevant data and our teams to get really relevant information about their estate and whatever that Guardian dashboard is. Then we also have our product, right? Threat response, our IR product, which is changing to security operations. That product is also 1/3 of HuntIQ. The most important part, though, is our experienced hand-on keyboards hunters that we're providing to our customers right now. So what this allows is our experience as threat hunters working in our customer environments for 12 months. Every day, they can be in there with them, working to get the most out of our product, out of that research that we're doing, but also bringing that wealth of experience to help the customer move their security operations forward and really get after implementing that policy and procedures that they've always wanted to get after, but not sure how to integrate all this together. So wealth of experience to do not just threat hunting, but that full like array of work that can be done to help the customer get the most out of HuntIQ.
I love it. So I'm seeing these three pieces here, and you mentioned, so we've talked about Guardian before. Um, on the show, you mentioned it. I'm assuming that's the advanced security research side of things.
That's a great question. Yeah. So Guardian and what they started bringing out when we started doing the Guardian dashboards has expanded. So they're not just doing Guardian anymore. They're also doing advanced research that both helps us, the hunter inside the environment, but we also provide information back to Guardian like, hey, we're seeing this kind of, vulnerabilities or IOCs where they can do that broader, wider research that you can't do with a scope inside of just one customer environment. So you do have that yeah.
I was gonna
Perfect.
say this helped me to understand because typically you think of a product as in our industry, this is a piece of software, but this goes beyond that. You said there's actual product, right? Threat response module, but then beyond that, this is actually expertise and experience is what you're buying here for this. You call it a support option. Can you speak to that a little bit? What does that look like?
Yeah, so our customer, they will buy us for 12 months, right? So we provide this support for 12 months. Each hunter will have more than one customer that they will work with, but this can be everything from I need help with developing this piece of intel inside of my environment to go after this specific use case for, let's say, a banking industry, right? Their threat landscape is vastly different than what the federal government's threat landscape is. So you're utilizing that expertise not only in our product, but also in the industry to really get after those difficult problems of security doesn't fit every industry and every customer equally. When we talk about our enhanced support, our support goes everything from I can help you do configuration to I can help you do alert and detection management, all the way up to our final state of wanting to do proactive threat hunting. So when you look at security operations, it's broken up into a lot of different components, things like security engineering, detection, mitigation, alert management, all this stuff. But the most difficult one in every environment is threat hunting. Having that expert that can go after and looking at, assuming I am already working in a compromised environment. I am looking at my estate, my threat landscape, knowing that something is compromised and I want to find whatever that is. That is difficult. And that's what we want to get to an end state. So support is everything from let's get started and make sure the tools are all working correctly with each other, all the way to the most advanced thing of I want to proactively look for bad guys in the environment.
I just could say that is amazing. I love it so much. So just I want to make sure I've got my head wrapped around this. So you've got three pieces. You've got the hunter, the services, crazy brain trust there. These guys are coming in, helping you configure not just Tanium, but maybe helping it work with your other tools. And then from there, it's kind of scope of they do threat hunting, work with people in the environment. I find that quite amazing because they're being embedded for 12 months. So they're having that opportunity to get familiar with things and really take this value and everything we see in Tanium and bring it to these teams. I just wanted to highlight, like, I absolutely adore that because of how much value that we have here. Getting the brain trust to leverage it and to make it make a difference is huge. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
that.
And
I
I have
think
to imagine with a brain trust like that and an announcement a year ago from the time we're recording this, what kind of brain trust stories do you have that have been able to, the customers who have purchased HuntIQ, what they've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, so that's a great question. These are all quotes from our private preview. So we immediately started private preview in January, and then in May is when we started taking our first paid customers into this. So everybody in private preview, we did a lot of work, but the problem with private preview is we weren't sure what our customers ask was going to be for us. So we had to do a lot of development on the fly from January to May, right? Like what is this going to look like? How do we get after threat hunting with Tanium? Where are the gaps that the customer has? All these things. So what we know, and we have in private preview and even customers now, we have an array from very small customers that are in the retail industry, maybe all the way up to large federal customers or large financial customers. So their risk tolerance is very different, and what they want from us is very different, which is awesome because we are not doing a short-term engagement. That was extremely critical to me. One of the things I dislike about the security industry is this like, hey, pay me. I'm going to come in. I'm going to just run a bunch of scans and drop you a product and then walk away, right? Very short-term engagement. What we do is vastly different. We come in and we say, I want to learn what your business use cases are here. I want to learn what your pain points are. I want to learn what your capabilities, your enablement, your teaching, training, and I want to enhance all that over 12 months. And that is specifically the number one value we've seen from our customers is getting after that, getting that enablement piece, not just with our software, our actual product, but from the expertise that our team brings to that organization is huge, huge dividends for them. Then the other part, I mean, you have specific wins like I really like the number two bullet up here because it is something that is so simple, but it brings back such value, right? I can go through and I can look at the hashes of all of the drivers inside of Tanium that are being loaded. Every DLL, every image, everything that an executable is loading, I can look at the hashes of that and I can compare that against some kind of reputation resource or something. This is a very easy thing to do in Tanium. It's not an easy thing to do in other tools, but you can see right there from that statement, we did 46,000 drivers across this one customer, and we found 16 potentially malicious drivers. Some of this was specifically crypto mining that was being done inside of their environment. I don't think any organization, any company wants crypto mining coming from their internal environment, right? I just don't think that's something they want there.
I love that bullet point and that story that you mentioned because those were in their environment. And I'm assuming this is a competent customer. They have security tools, but it can be hard to find things.
Yeah, and you start relying though also on security tools that are kind of almost black box, right? Like
Mm.
I'm looking for that alert. I want the security to or a tool to provide me this easy solution. That's not security. So one of the benefits that Tanium has is being able to really dive in and investigate in that data, right? We become the source of truth in these environments, not only checking, but filling the gaps of those other security tools that's in the environment. This can be everything from collecting data or validating data that they're seeing from the other security tool. A lot of times, security tools will often just spark this like long questions of like, what is that? Why is that doing that? Is that normal behavior? And without diving into other research and all this other time, you're not really getting that. With Tanium, you can immediately like pivot and go, why am I seeing that from that security tool? And we're used a lot for that in these customer environments. And then just like in that bullet number two, easy things like that are things that security tools miss, right? And a lot of our attackers take advantage of that. They take advantage of things called living off the land, where they're utilizing common administrator tasks to do malicious activities.
So I'm imagining as I'm looking at this, obviously we have some amazing stuff here. We have an amazing brain trust. We're offering this as a service. Um, a lot of our people who watch Tanium Tech Talks are the operators. They're not the ones who are buying things. I can imagine if I'm an operator and seeing this, I might be like, hey, am I going to be out of a job? Are these guys gonna take my job and do better than I am at? Tell me about that. Should we be concerned? How does this work?
So that's we have actually had that discussion. What we have found though is that once the customers start, usually a decision maker will say, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and do this," and then we start working with the individuals that you're talking about, the ones that are doing the day in day out work. They're hands on keyboard. They're doing these actions. What they are starting to find though is that we're not there to take their jobs. We're there to enable them as part of their team. We want to get the most or provide the best information, the best source of truth, the best experience that we can. A large part of what we do is enablement, a huge amount of enablement, both for our brand new customers, but even as we go along, as we see like threat hunting is happening, we're teaching the customers how to do this threat hunting. We can talk about in a little bit, our process for threat hunting as we get into the demo. That's going to be an important piece. But one thing to remember is that we're not just hoarding this to ourselves. We are the tools that we're creating to do this threat hunting, we're giving to the customers and we're enabling them to do this and more with these tools.
All right. So what I just heard you say is that if you were a golfer, you'd be getting personal golf lessons from Tiger Woods. or if you're a basketball player, you're getting lessons from Michael Jordan. Like these are high performing industry experts who are coming into your team to be shoulder to shoulder with you, teaching you in the day in and day out. So it's not like they're going to take your job. They're going to enhance your value to your employer and your career by learning from them. Is that kind of the notion?
Yeah, and it's not just the person in there, it's the tools that we're bringing with us. So we create tools outside the Tanium console to do this threat hunting action. This is an extremely important part because you're not just getting us and our expertise, we're teaching you how to utilize the API in Tanium and Tanium's advanced tooling to the most of its capabilities, and we give you all of that. So we'll talk about the Jupyter notebooks, but that's a high value item is to learn how to utilize APIs to do threat hunting. And when we're talking about the value of an individual person, you have to remember also you're getting the value of our entire team. So we are working together against these problems and we're leveraging each other's skill set in our team and providing that forward to the customer. So I have some of my threat hunters extremely good at Linux, right? They are Linux experts to the T. Let's say the threat hunter, though, that's working with federal customer A, they are really good at Windows because a lot of the federal government is Windows. So we put that in there, but they have a unique Linux problem. They're leveraging other people in our team to get those answers to help that customer move forward in that area. So it's both. They get both out of this service.
So you mentioned Jupyter Notebooks and you mentioned a demo. What can you show us today?
Yeah, so there's a lot to the demo. There's a lot of space in what technically this looks like. But let's first talk about what is threat hunting, right? Threat hunting is there's a bunch of different quotes up here on the screen. These are from different entities over different parts of time. So what you'll see though is that threat hunting is some kind of advanced proactive searching inside the environment. My favorite is the center quote. This is what I usually latch onto as a cyber expert, and I get my opinion on this sometimes. This is the one I latched onto. So cyber threat hunting as a human-centric security practice that proactively approaches uncovering threats that evade detection tools, threats that were detected and dismissed. Now, I didn't say that quote exactly because, well, you can read the exact quote there. The important things there, though, it's a proactive hunting in your environment, and it's a human-centric security practice. So in my background, I did national level defense work with malware analysis, packet analysis, and stuff like that. What I found is that even when we were doing AI research back in the day, we've found that you can't really get after the human brain's ability to link all these things together, right? And so that is where we strive. We're looking inside the environment and go, hey, if I was a bad guy, what would I do to get to the keys to the kingdom, right? Whatever that intellectual property is or what's important to that customer. So that is threat hunting. Threat hunting is assume something's bad, put a scientific method, build a theory, and start doing that human-centric, proactive hunting to figure out what the bad guy would do, looking for the things that our tools aren't going to find. I often commonly get asked, how do we develop our hunts? I want to point out the categories here, right? This is probably the most important part of developing the hunt. Remember, we want to put a scientific process behind this. So we want to create this area where we are getting a specific thing we're going to look for. We want to build a hypothesis. And then how are we going to support that hypothesis? How do we build the hypothesis? That's the very first thing. This in the category is how we commonly build those. So it's data driven, or it's from some kind of intelligence source, or it's an entity driven type of thing, or it's a TTP, or it's some combination of all of these, right? When we talk about data driven, this could be something like an observation. I noticed bandwidth has spiked during 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's not normal, right? That's not our normal operating. So I have this data. I'm going to create some kind of hunt around that. We have Intel. This is probably the most common one. Some kind of Intel feed comes in and says like, hey, this organization, this APT, this criminal activity is happening. Here's what you want to look for. We could build hunts around that. One of my favorites, though, is the entity driven. And this is where we really work hard and are a differentiator to other types of threat hunting. Because we're in a customer's environment for 12 months, we understand their organization. Entity-driven hunts you have to understand the organization and what's important to them. You know where all the secrets are inside the environment, and you're going to start building hunts around an attacker trying to get to those, right? We used to talk about defense in depth, and that is great. We still want defense in depth, but when you talk about the amount of time and where you want to focus on the most likely place that an attack will happen, that would do the worst impact to the company. And entity driven supports that. And with working with our customers for 12 months, I really feel like that is an area that we provide a lot of value, and that's what our customers are seeing. As we learn them and what's important to them, we can really go in after these entity-driven areas. And then you have TTPs. What are APTs doing, which is advanced persistent threats? So threats are organizations that are backed by government funding, right? So usually they have a large amount of money and they have a large amount of capability. I want to know what their tactics, techniques, and procedures are, and then I'm going to build hunts around that. And then a hybrid is all of these. If I know I have a government entity or an APT that is targeting financial institutions, and I know the financial institutions, these servers are the important thing, or availability is an important thing, I can make a hunt that brings all of that together, and that's a hybrid hunt. Does that make sense so far? That's a lot of info there.
What I'm hearing is we have all of these different ways of doing hunting. We have amazingly experienced people, like 15 years on average of experience with great resumes, who not only know these things, but now they're getting a 12-month engagement. All the fancy words you just said. I mean, tracking, yes, but they're going to take their knowledge and they're going to now know your environment, if this is in your environment, and pair those together do all these fun hunts. What does that look like day to day? What is that like? What is the ins and
Yeah,
outs?
yeah, absolutely. So day-to-day threat hunting, you want to make it as scientific as possible, right? And you want to make it repeatable. You want to really analyze, does this make sense? And then you really want to investigate that. So this is what a typical hunt workflow looks like. I'm going to build a hypothesis based off of one of those categories. I'm then going to look at my estate, my tools, my capabilities, and see, how do I collect the right data? Can I collect the right data? Where do I put that data? What do I do with that to be able to support the hypothesis? This is where Tanium strives at, right? If we don't collect the data already, we have some kind of sensor or package that's pulling that data in. It is super easy to create that and deploy that out there. A lot of our hunts today that we've done with our customers, we are creating custom sensors that are going and collecting the data to support these hunts. A pretty interesting one is, like, for Black Hat, we created this theoretical hunt based off of real APT data. We took that, it was based off of link masquerading or shortcut masquerading. We took that, dropped it in a customer environment, and we immediately found shortcuts that were in their environment that were from a malicious activity back from 2023. So they have EDRs in their environment. They're scanning these environments, and they have this malicious link just sitting somewhere in somebody's computer that was from 2023, and nothing has cleaned it up or even identified it, right? That is where this data collection piece comes in. I need to be able to know what that looks like, how to grab that, how to look for that. That's where we strive. The next part is our data analysis. So a lot of hunting is done inside of XDRs or inside of SIMs because of this data analysis piece. There's a lot of theoretical work that's been done in the past where people have played around with different mechanisms to do data analysis. We wanted a capability that we could easily use across our teams and provide to our customers. And so we decided to do Jupyter Notebooks and Python. Our team has a lot of experience with Python. If you don't know, Jupyter Notebook is a data analysis tool or framework that you can utilize to graph out information, to use text to describe what you're doing, and then code blocks to execute inside of it. This works really well for us to be able to target and do that data analysis piece of correlating our data across the entire state. And this provides the benefit of ensuring that that data, it stays inside of our customer environment. Great, right? And then you have to validate it. Just like any good scientific method, you have to validate what you're seeing actually supports your hypothesis or not, right? And then we want to create some kind of mechanism to do this hunt easier or even automate this hunt, which is very important. And Tanium is really good at. That could be something like creating intel or creating an actual automated mechanism to do the hunt in their environment. So that is what our normal workflow looks like for threat hunting. Remember, we provide a lot of other stuff, but we want to get to that proactive advanced threat hunting capability in the customer environment.
I love how you're talking about we actually make this repeatable and the notebooks and stuff. I'm assuming that's the third part of this because we have advanced security research, the hands-on threat hunters, and then we have the threat hunting product. So that's what we're talking about when we get the threat hunting product is these like repeatable things that the hunters are delivering. Is that right?
A little bit. So
Tell me more.
yeah, we as the hunters are developing this to do our day-to-day job in the customer environment. Remember, every customer is going to be different. And so we're developing this. What the benefit of typing this all up in Python and creating all these notes for this is now we can hand this over to engineering. And then if this is a capability that needs to come into our product, it can easily come into our product. We also have, engineers that are specific to now helping us develop these notebooks or we call them hunter tools. And that's just a tool that we're creating outside of the Tanium console to do threat hunting. So yes, this feeds directly into that engineering and that third portion of it, but the hunter tools themselves are specifically to the threat hunters.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I appreciate the clarification.
Thinking about though that workflow, let's talk about how Tanium excels in this. So I created this completely fake and brand new situation for this. And so the first thing I was reading online, I like to read a lot of SAN stuff, but if you're not familiar with what an immutable file is in Linux, what that means is there's a flag or an attribute that you can actually turn on to make it so this file cannot be changed. Root cannot even change this file. It first has to be made, the flag has to be turned off, and then root can change the file. Interesting stuff, right? So if you think about it, what would we use this for in Linux? Commonly, this is used for some kind of configuration or something like that. Bad guys, right? Completely easy thing to do. Bad guys will use this for persistence. I want to make this file immutable so any kind of operator can't change it. How do you search for that? So real quick, I just made a sensor that looks for that. So I want to see all of my immutable files on Linux and see what that gives us, right? Because this is how we kind of start looking at stuff. Now, as this is going out, all I did was take the shell script, like it's a easy one-liner, and I put that in there and I said, give me the results of any file that has this flag turned on. And so you can see immediately I have this I. That means that immutable flag is turned on. And I can drill down into this. Great use of Tanium, right? Very easy. At scale, I'm looking at all my immutable files. I'm looking at them and I can get more information. All right, so I know this Linux box has an immutable file called, in this case, it's very obvious because I just made it obvious, right? Persistence test.txt. And so I want to know more information about that. So this is a great place where we talk about Tanium's ability to see data and get data, right? It was really easy to make this. It's really easy to scale this across an environment of million endpoints and get the data and information back. So this is the kind of stuff that we do that starts triggering out these hypotheses. So when we look at this, we can start then looking at a notebook. So this is a Jupyter notebook. This is what we call hunter tools. And in this case, we're looking at like a file behavioral report. So I can go in and I can direct connect and I can investigate more. Why is that persistence file there? What wrote it? What made it? What did all this stuff, right? In this notebook has a lot of benefits. And you can see on the right, we have a bunch of different hunts that are out there, but we also are creating notebooks to do common things like baselining the environment, which is important to understand the environment. In this one, though, this is a great example of one that we can utilize to get a lot of information out of all of the recorder databases on the endpoint to see what's going on with a specific file, executable, or some kind of binary that's running on the environment. In this case, I'm going to look at all my Windows machines. You can see it does a lot of checks to make sure that we're not going to harm the environment in any way. So we're looking at what are the machines, what are the sensors that we're running, and then we're going to get details about how long does it take for those sensors to run. We want to make sure, obviously, that we're not going to harm the environment. Do no evil, right? And so in this case, I'm just going to look up code.exe. Actually, I'm going to change this a little bit, and I'm going to make it code.star. That's to give us even more stuff.
So while this is running, these are all queries and things that you've built, put together to automate individual steps. So instead of having to go back in and do each one, we're just running through the.
Yep.
Oh,
So, and you can run this notebook at once. What's great about Jupyter Notebooks is it gives you the details about what you're about to run. So this allows us to really document the hunt. And then we can start getting down into here's the exact query that we've built out. We could take that, drop it into Tanium, and you could see the same thing. Now, though, I'm going to actually go through and I'm utilizing the Tanium API to do all of this, right? And so this makes it very repeatable, very easy, and we give this to the customer so they can even build out on this. The benefit for our hunters, though, is I have this tool, I bring it into the environment, and I can utilize this in my and modify it to meet my specific customer needs. So deep dive into the endpoint, I'm going to go ahead and use one of my computers. So it sees code.exe is on a bunch of different machines. I'm going to go ahead and now run this for that specific machine, which this is going to take that file from that machine, and we are going to we get all the executables that are there.
As you're going through this, I love it. There's so much here. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to give away the keys to the kingdom. So for our customers who are watching or wondering about this, how do they get this HuntIQ Hunter in their environment?
Yeah, so that's a great question. This is a paid service, right, or a paid support. So the best thing to do is talk with your sales team, right? Talk with that, either your customer success team, your sales team, and then they will get with us and we can talk about the value for your specific use cases. Does this make sense for you? HuntIQ probably doesn't make sense for every customer out there. Like we talked about, though, it's an enabling factor to it, right? We fill a lot of gaps, we bring a lot of value. Let's start that conversation with your sales team and see how that fits for you.
Michael, thank you for this amazing tour. Truly, the depth is clear here. And folks of you watching at home, if you need help with this level of depth in your environment, please reach out to your Tanium contacts. As Michael said, we'd love to get you hooked up with this expert team so you can learn your dunking skills from Michael Jordan himself. All right. So, and we can dunk on those APTs all day long then that's fun. So, Josh, take us home.
Absolutely so much. Michael, again, thank you so much for your time. I'm excited for the team, for a lot of these direct customer impacts that we've seen and how we're going to get this feedback into the product to make it even better. So as usual, we'll have links in the show notes below, docs, KBs, all of that fun stuff. If you would like, drop us a note on LinkedIn and submit any subjects like suggestions. Submit any suggestions about topics you want to talk about. So thank you so much. Until next time.
Go Tanium.